Hello folks, hope you're doing well. Just thought I'd give you an update on the layout and my current fleet and stock acquisitions. We're in July, so a lot has happened. The Claude obviously I acquired last year and I haven't really done a lot to it, and I've actually avoided doing any Loco building since I last, since then. I cracked on with my K2 that I've got now. And I'm waiting for some valve gear to turn up, and that's really hampered me because I've been waiting for that to come. So it meant that the Loco kind of is waiting for bits to progress it, and while I'm waiting for bits, I'm sort of sitting on my laurels going, well, what am I going to do? So I made a start on the coaches you can see behind the Claude, and most recently I have been sorting out the actual Claude itself. So yeah, I've been really satisfied with how that's been progressing. Yeah, no, really satisfied how we're getting on. So I'll give you a little bit of a rundown on what I've been doing with the Claude, where we're at with the Claude, and what I've been doing, and actually what's next on the bench. So with the Claude itself, the Loco's required quite a bit of work to get it to where it is now, and actually it's had a whole new running board and footplate put in, and that's purely my mistake. That was, but it was also kind of a blessing in disguise after what I found after doing quite a bit of investigation on the Loco. So I found that the leading bogey wheels were actually touching the top of the running board of the previous running board of the Loco, and this is because the running board was actually bent downwards. So from here down to the front plate, it was actually sloped downwards, only slightly, but it meant this leading wheel was scraping the top of the running board, the underside of the running board, and it meant that the wheels were not going round, which meant, you can't really have a Loco like that and you're running an express train and that wheel was gumming it up. It also meant that the Loco itself was actually going to require more work in other places. So a decision had to be made to try and straighten this out. So the first thing I did was I took the boiler off, the cab off, the splashers off, and the frame plates out, because I'd made a decision that I was going to replace them with the strengthened frames you see on the engine now. And so I made that adjustment to try and get the frames straight. So I tried to get this running board straight, and I actually whacked out here, completely ruined the footplate. I have it upstairs on the bench, and I was absolutely, shocked. That I'd tried to be really careful to try and adjust it, and it just didn't work. It didn't pay out at all, which was frustrating. But actually, I didn't let it rule me, and I went, okay, well, that's it. I've got to do a new running board. Now, the thing I didn't stress about was the fact the Loco already had a spare of running footplate and splasher plates, so it meant that even if I made a mistake, I'd still had a backup, and the backup was this. So what the kit actually gives you is a nickel silver and a brass running plate, and it gives you brass and nickel silver balances on the side of the Loco, which actually made for quite a nice dynamic actually. So yeah, things really did move forward with the engine there. Once I with some help from Nico, a good mate of mine, we did put the running board in. The Loco ran. The Loco rolled nicely, which was nice. It was actually quite a nice little test when I finally rolled her off, and very satisfied in how she looks now. Really captures that look that those engines had. I'm just gonna pause the camera and we'll come back in just a moment. Yes, so the focused detail components have been the fitting of the vacuum air coupling and the steam heat pipes. I found that I have got to do a bit of work to the steam heat pipes, because the pipe I fitted, unfortunately, the pipe actually impedes the bogie swinging. So the wheel, if it goes around a right-hand corner, any tight right-hand corner, that bogie will hit that, and it will start scraping, and eventually we'll start getting sparks from it. So it's going to have to be something I'm going to have to modify. The only thing that the Loco hasn't got on the engine at this moment in time is the lamp bracket that has to go on the smoke box door. I actually have run out of cast lamp brackets, which means I need to go to get some more. I was very fortunate that I didn't have to get any snifting valves. That was something that the Loco was a bit short on. There's actually a lot of castings this engine was short on. So the dome, the chimney, the safety valves, the snifting valves, the whistle. So all this sort of standard stuff you see on a steam locomotive, I've had to get rid of basically. I had to find parts for. The kit very nicely did come with the elbow from the ejector and the ejector pipe here. I think that's the waste pipe, but it meant that the Loco was going to have this, you know, it was going to look weird. And in my head, this ejector pipe actually had a pipe that ran down to the footplate. And whenever you look at these engines, they've got this really nice copper pipe running to the footplate, and it looks really smart in my mind. I thought, I can't not have that pipe in copper. So I found some copper pipe that I had spare. I cut the white metal casting and I just drilled a hole into the casting, allowing the copper pipe to sit inside. The ejector pipe, there again was a white metal casting that was supposed to go into the elbow, and I again removed that and replaced that with a brass equivalent. And I was very satisfied with how that went. And I'm just going to pick the camera up here now in any second now. There we go, got it. Good. And this meant that the Loco sits and stands quite nicely on the layout, and she does look, I think she looks really smart just sitting there. Then another thing I've added is the reverser. I had to scratch build that, and you probably can tell it's been scratch built. I also have scratch built a bracket that holds the reverser in place, and on the ejector are a couple of little brackets which I've made up and soldered on in place as well. And actually she really does sort of stand out on the footplate. She rolls relatively well. I mean, she's not rolling that well right now. It's because I've only just put her back together and she needs a bit of an oil, and oil will resolve that. I've also had to put in a full plate which runs off the back of the footplate. And I was very pleased when I put the tender to get back the replacement tender, which is more or less what we're going to have with the new tender, when they just married up absolutely perfectly. And you know, you've got a perfect little space for the handbrake when that eventually goes in on there. So yeah, the Loco really does sort of look the part at the moment. Right, so what I'll do is I'm just going to pause again, and I'll get some of the wagons, and we'll stop focusing on the cord and we'll start looking at some of the other bits I've been doing. Next is some fish vans. These, I think, are diagram 143. I think it's 134 fish vans. So these are the shorter style fish vans. So the LNER had various fish vans that they used. They had the large version, which Pico does. Now, some people have said to me, well, why am I not just building the Pico versions? And the trouble is, the Pico versions are 1938 fish vans only. So they were built in 1938 and they were only used after that. So they're more of a BR kind of thing, because you get your 1938 is very close to that wartime period, and I modelled till 1936. So I'm in a position whereby I need to build these kind of fish vans. Now, you can buy the Pico fish van and cut it down, cut it down to size, making it overall cheaper than buying the brass kits. But I'd quite like to have a couple of these LNER fish vans and have a couple of pre-grouping ones. The only thing stopping the progression is the buffers. I've actually got to get something like this. So this is something that I've had my chairman of my model railway club do. And what he did was he machined out the casting for me, and then he actually made the buffer for me. Now, what you can do is just buy the buffer head, and I believe the O-Gauge Guild do these, but I have yet to find where, because I'd like to get some more of these castings drilled out, and so I can just solder them straight into the wagons. But yeah, I'm very happy with those, and they'll go into a wagon that you'll see in a moment. But yeah, at the moment I've got 2 of these fish vans, which means that we're now into the phase where I've got 3 fish vans and 1 refrigeration van, which means the fish train for the K2 has advanced to 4 vehicles. Of course, there's quite a bit of cleanup on these fish vans required, so I will crack on with these. Once the buffers were done, I'll be able to paint them, but at the moment, with the weather being the way it is and it's extremely hot, it's actually becoming a lot more difficult to actually progress any paint work, because the paint is drying in the airbrush before it even gets onto the vehicle, which is becoming excessively difficult. Anyway, we'll move to the next 2 vehicles. So the next two vehicles are two other vehicles, one of them Great Eastern, one of them LNER. To the foreground here is a Great Eastern Mac K wagon. So this is built by D&S Kits. That was actually that was a nice little project. That was I think that was a 3-evening project. It was 2 evenings to put it completely together, and then it was the 3rd evening of it was probably 4 evenings actually, because it was two evenings of putting it together and 2 evenings of actually doing the detail. So I even did all these little loops here, so these little loops, these little eyelets to help you move up. And yes, I did make them move because I'm a complete anarchist. But yeah, no, very happy with that little wagon. That was quite a little pleasure to build actually. I really enjoyed that. And next door is an LNER tube wagon. So this is quite a big wagon actually. It's quite a heavy lump, and this is another connoisseur product. So it's much like the fish vans, it just falls together. Very pleased with how that all went, and I even went as far as to fitting the chains on the kit as well. In addition to that, I also made up a load for it. So I took a load of brass tube and I painted it all black, and I've just soldered it all together. And I thought actually it'd be quite nice to have a little hole just so you could see the underside, and that load is removable, so I don't have to have tubes in it all the time. But yeah, no, very happy. And you can see what I've done is I've just press fitted those buffers into the wagon, because those buffers are bound for this wagon. But what we'll do now is I'll just go grab the last 3 wagons, and we'll then talk about the coaches. Lastly, in terms of wagons, we've gone to 3D printed wagons. So we'll talk about the vans in a second, because I'm going to give a shout out to a good friend who made these, and he could always do with some exposure. What I've done here is an M&Gen, a 3-plank wagon. Now, 3-plank wagons, I'm not entirely sure if they carried coal. I wouldn't have said that they would have done. Now, I could be wrong. I'll need to do some research on that. But this wagon, I think I might put some ballast in, using a ballast train or an engineer's train of some description. But the wagon is going to have M&Gen markings on it. It's built by the Furnace Wagon Company, or the Pre-Grouping Wagon Company, you know, along those lines. And they specialise in 3D printing stuff. And you know, I thought actually quite a good opportunity to pick something that's not LNER or Great Eastern in the set for the fleet. You know, the wagon itself, the print was actually the print's pretty good. It's not, you know, quite perfect. The issue I've had is the wagon, it wasn't sitting flat on its wheels. It wasn't sitting flat, so it was bent, and I had to put it in something to warm it up. That wasn't ideal. And then what I did was I cured the resin again under a UV light to get it to sit flat. Once I'd finished that, I actually managed to get it completely sitting flat, so it's now just sitting lovely and flat on its wheels. But there's a bit of a lump and a bump in the bottom there, so some ballast something will hide that all up. So yeah, that was that little project. Quite happy. It was quite a simple little build. It wasn't particularly, I didn't do a very good job of it, particularly the brake gear, because the way the brake gear went in, it didn't quite go in square, so it made it very difficult to do. Anyway, well, less on that, and we'll focus on the Great Eastern vans. These, I think, are Diagram 18 general merchandise vans. So I've been very lucky in that I bought these from a company called New Cross Studios, with Thomas, who runs it. Thomas specialises in 3D printing parts, components, and a few other bits. Something that Claude is going to be benefiting from soon. I'm going to be looking at some cylinder covers, and I'm going to be looking at the casting, a 3D printing for what's called, I think it's like a grease lubricator, which is on the other side of the Loco. So Thomas is quite good at that sort of thing. Thomas has printed these because he was requested to do some Great Eastern wagons of different sort of styles. So to the foreground we have a much older looking Great Eastern van. Both of these vehicles are fitted with grease axle boxes. I might do another one where he actually gives you the option of having a oil styled, so you can have oil and or grease. And I chose grease because grease is a more older way of lubricating wagons. Excuse me. Thomas was really good actually, really helpful. So what I've done with the wagons is you have to acquire your own wheels, screw link couplings, and everything else is pretty much given to you in the kit if you request it. So you can get things like the hangers and stuff. I was quite fortunate that I had some spare, so I wasn't really desperate, if that makes sense. But yeah, this wagon I've only fitted brakes underneath. I must admit, the quality of the printing, I will completely be honest to you, I have not had to sand much on here. There's a bit of jaggedy under the edges here, but again, this is where you can. I have seen Thomas do this wagon, and he has gone at sanding these wagons, and I think they are absolutely outstanding. I really cannot, stress that jaggedy edge, if you think about it, is actually me. I haven't sanded it enough, so that's actually me. That's the modeler's fault, not anyone else's. But this is going to be a Great Eastern. This is going to be LNER. It's going to be in grey, as it's a non-fitted vehicle. Where in comparison to this is actually a standard Great Eastern general merchandise vehicle. Now, I've seen these vacuum fitted, and I swore if I did another one, I would vacuum fit it. And I actually found that the furnace. This is where it ties in nicely to this wagon. I found that the Furnace Wagon Company actually do this wagon. I have actually built one, and I've got two of these now. The other one's a little bit taller than this one. This is to scale in terms of height, and the other one's a little bit out of scale because the sole bar is just too thick. So it's a little bit awkward there, but it doesn't matter. But this one will be painted in LNER grey, as it will be vacuum fitted, and I'm very, very satisfied with the build. Actually, very, very enjoyable to put in together. The only thing to be careful of is Thomas will provide you buffers if you ask for it, but be careful when sanding the drilling out the shanks to get the buffers in, because if you use a Dremel, you will wreck those shanks. I highly recommend using a pin vise, a pin drill, and just slowly going through it with that, and then using a tapered broach just to file that all out. But yes, that's the wagon update, and now we're going to move on to the lovely coaches and horse box. So what I've done is I've moved the Claude out of the way, mainly because I want to show you a few other bits and pieces as well. But yes, the first sort of focus has been on these. The first part of the year I actually was building these coaches, except the horse box. Initially, I picked the Calestri up last year, and it's been sitting on the shelf for a little bit of time. But at the O-Gauge Berry show, I actually picked up this Great Eastern 6-wheel brake, pretty much completed actually. Very, very satisfied with that. And I decided I was going to paint it in LNER brown. And I'm pretty satisfied with how it looks actually. To get the colour, I painted once I primed the vehicle, I then painted it in. I painted the coach in yellow, the coach body in yellow, painted the ends black, and then when we used a hand brush, painted the whole thing brown, which is why it looks a bit blotchy in places. But once I'd varnished the coach, actually it turned out that actually looked a lot more realistic, because it looked like the bodywork was starting to pop out in certain places, which actually I'm quite satisfied with. But that's where you learn. So what I'll do with this vehicle, and I also have another vehicle in the set. Actually, if you've looked at any of the other videos I've done, you can actually see that I've run this set as a 4. That's the only reason the other coach is not in the set, is because it's in bits. That is a Great Eastern 6-wheel lavatory third. So it's another slightly different kind of vehicle actually. So quite a nice little project, and I think it's an open coach. So there's I think there's a corridor down the middle with access to the lavatory in the corner. I'll have to look at the drawings for that though. So before I build an interior, at the moment the coaches don't have interiors in them. They've only got this coach has absolutely nothing in it, and the Calestri just has the partition walls. So the great thing is that at the moment the Calestri roof comes away, and you're able to see inside the Calestri. So the Calestri has had the bottom end painted, the wheels are done, the bogies are done, the buffers are in. Everything on the bottom end is done. It's just the body and the roof that needs doing, and I need to get some help to do the roof, roller roof, and then we'll drill holes in the top here for all the windows and everything, so it'll look quite nice with the light beaming in. So at this end we have the luggage compartment. So in the set, the way I envisaged it is that the Calestri is up front, it's vacuum and air fitted, but the set is going to be an air fitted, it's a through air fitted set only, so it's a little bit unique in that respect, and this is because of that lovely vehicle, and we'll come to that in a moment. But what I've done is, because you've got the luggage compartment at this end here, I thought it'd be quite apt to have the luggage compartment here on the for the first class passengers here. Now ordinarily on a London on any sort of set, you tend to have the first class compartment either closest to the London end or closest to whichever your terminus end is, but I wanted it here. Now if it's not accurate, c'est la vie. But I wanted the first class compartment to have the luggage compartment close to the guard, so the guard had access to both parts of the train. But what we've got here is 4 third class compartments here, a lavatory in the middle, 2 firsts, the luggage, and obviously the brake. The idea behind the set being like this is that I wanted a vintage set. Now I wanted a vintage set to go behind the E4, mainly because the E4 had 2 Great Eastern 50 foots, which made up my Mildenhall branch set. But it was a sudden realization of actually, the more sets you have, the better. So it didn't matter how many big trains I had. I didn't need to have horrendously large sets. Excluding the B17's very large set. This is going to be my sort of my cross-country service, which is really a bit antiquated because you've got this Calestri and a pair of 6-wheelers going in. But yeah, that if you go to one of my other videos with the E4 running on Linston, you'll get to see this set running with the other coach behind the E4. So yeah, we'll now move on to the horse box. So for this, I thought I'd move the horse box off the set, and I thought I would have it all by its lonesome. So this is a very unique vehicle in some respects. Very, very satisfied with how it looks and where it sort of progressed. I mean, you just look at it, it's absolutely outstanding. You know, you've got a vehicle there that just it just looks so nice on the layout. I'm just going to lay the camera down there like that. This allows me to talk about the vehicle. So the horse box itself is from the stuff that Ellis Clark sold a few months ago. I wanted to get a fish van to go with the fish set, because he was selling a fish van from that, and I got home to try and buy it, and I couldn't buy it through my phone because it just wasn't working. So I went to my laptop, and my laptop is old and ancient and breaking, and it didn't want to do anything. It wasn't interested in what needed to be done, and I was trying to get my laptop to fire up and trying to get it to go, and by the time I got it there, it then spent half an hour just sitting there not loading. And I just saw this wagon, I refreshed the page, and it was gone by the time my computer had gone, and I was a bit upset actually, because I wanted the fish van. But alas, it then came to this was one of the very few things left, and it was in budget. So I picked up this lovely Great Eastern horse box. So this is from the layout Norfolk Central. Initially my thought was not to repaint it, because I thought it was too nice to repaint. I wanted to take the Great Eastern markings off of it and, you know, run it as an LNER vehicle. But the more I looked at the vehicle, the more I was looking at it and thinking about it, I could not physically bring myself to do it, to change it or modify it in any single way. I thought it would be a discredit to the person to the chap who owned Norfolk Central. I didn't want to, you know, it's one of those things that it's actually so nicely done that there is absolutely no point in touching it. So I didn't. The kit also has had the roof. Can you believe the roof's been painted inside? I'll just pick the camera up for you now. And it's even had a seat put in for an interior. Now, I mean, to be frank, it's not much of an interior, but when you look inside, you can see inside, you know, you can see the seat inside. So it's one of those things that I've picked up on the basis that actually it's too nice not to do something with it, you know. But yeah, it rolls really nicely. The kit's even had the safety chains fitted, the screw links are on, and it's air fitted only. This is what sparked the problem. It was an air fitted only vehicle. Now granted, there would have still been some air fitted only vehicles running on the LNER back then, so the chances were that actually there was going to be stock locomotives and a few other bits and pieces that were hanging around that never got vacuum fitted. This sort of sparked not a problem but an interesting thought. I suddenly thought, well, why don't I take the horse box and put it back on this set? So what I did was I thought, well, if I have it as one set, it will allow me to have this as an air fitted only set. And actually it kind of worked out really, because it allowed me to just crack on with this and do some other bits. Now I'm just going to pause it because it's just started raining. Right, with the rain stopped, I can now hear myself think. But yeah, going back to the whole idea was then to have an air fitted only set, but this didn't mean that I needed to have air fitted only Locos. As you guys will be well aware, Great Eastern engines were all fit, most excluding freight Locos, were fitted with Westinghouse air pumps, the Claude and the B12 and things like the J15, the E4, they were kind of all fitted with them back then, and it's one of those things that as you progress, you end up picking up these things. So yeah, you know, it's really progressive. That the LNER was quite unique in that, in the particularly eastern region, they were able to be so much more flexible with their running. You know, they could take so much more stock. And finally, I'm just going to end with one more acquisition. Now, if anyone's been on the LNER modelers page, they know I haven't shown it, and I think it's about time I did. So I'll just get that out of the box and I shall display it for you guys. See you in a bit. And here she is. Yeah, it's a B12. So this is actually the, you to be really technical with it, it's an S69. Again, it seems I've got a bit of a running trend here where it doesn't come with a tender. The kit, both the Claude and the B12 both came with tenders, but they're both not very accurate, so it meant that the Loco wasn't very, it meant that it wasn't accurate and wasn't good, which made things a little bit more difficult when it came to actually deciding what you're going to do next. So I've contacted Connoisseur Models about a tender, and the hope is that if Jim sells a couple of B12s or a couple of Locos with these large tenders, I'll be able to ask him to do me a tender. But he said he will not do me a tender straight off the bat, so it's a case of just waiting for that sort of thing. But we'll get there. There's absolutely no rush. The aim will be now to get this to the same sort of detail stand that the Claude's in. This unlike the Claude, the B12 has got a lot more work to be done to it. So the only things that I've done to the Loco since buying it have been the soldering in of the boiler, the firebox, the boiler, and the side frames here. I've also soldered in the side splasher etch here. Now, doing that dates the locomotive, because some of these engines were fitted when they went into LNER ownership. They kept the lovely brass splasher, and the LNER actually painted them black. They were painted black. Now there was a little bit of a tale for you. It was at Stratford. There was a bit of a war that went on between Doncaster and Stratford, and this was because Stratford liked burnishing all the bright work. They were very proud of the locomotives that they owned. You know, they were still building Locos, and you know, they were really proud of what they did. And this meant that the Loco works at the paint shop were really keen to keep Locos in good nick and be proud of who they were. You know, they used to build these engines. Alas, due to, I think it was wages, because in the northeast the government were putting a lot of pressure on the LNER to put more jobs in the northeast, so there had to be a movement towards building locomotives and rolling stock up north, rather than building it in London, because wages in London were really high, and A, the LNER couldn't afford it really, and B, the government was encouraging to get wages up and get people to go up north. You know, sounds very familiar to sort of today, but we'll move away from that. So yeah, the engines had the buffers fitted, the shank, the guard irons fitted, the frames fitted, the piano front's been soldered in, the boiler's been fitted, firebox, the cab roof's in, the cab box covers have been soldered in, and it just needs a damn good clean because it hasn't really had that yet. And and obviously it needs a new tender. So yeah, it's one of those projects that's going to take a bit of time, but actually when you think about it in terms of enjoyment, hopefully in the not too distant future I'll be able to put this out as a finished item, and I'll do an update. I won't do a channel update, I'll do an actual update on the locomotive itself. Quite satisfied with how it's going, but the Claude has taken priority, and now the project of the Claude is winding down. It's now time to start really focusing on the B12. Both the Claude and the B12 will need some sort of inside valve gear being fitted. This is purely because the Locos, you can't knock, they've got such, I mean the B12's got such a huge space between the splasher and the smoke box. You've got to do something, and the Claude has something similar, but not as long as a B12. Is essentially just a longer Claude. But you know, the thing that attracted me to this was I picked this up at Kettering earlier this year in March. I know it's been a while since I've done something, particularly updates, but you know, the Loco didn't come with any driving wheels. I had the bogie wheels and I had the tender wheels, you know, but I didn't have the driving wheels. So I picked up I got some driving wheels. Very satisfied with those, and it meant that the Loco is now at the point where it's just you know, cracking on. You know, really enjoying the ability that the Loco has got in getting bits and pieces finished off. You know, very rarely do I get that opportunity to just crack on with something. And I'm going to change the coupling rods as well, and I fitted the brakes, and I've also made a start on fitting the brake rigging as well. So it's little things like this are slowly progressing on the engine. I'm very satisfied with its rolling ability. I mean, at the moment with the coupling rods the way they are, they're not terribly great, so it's just a case of just cracking on and just seeing how we go with that. But I thought you might appreciate seeing where we are in terms of Thurstable Lane. I've currently drilled all the holes for the points, so the points can start going in. I've got a few repairs to do before the next show. I'm at the Broadland Model Railway show, which isn't too long away. I think that's at the end of, I think it's either in August or in end of July. Yeah, so the layout will be out one more time this year, and it won't be out for the rest of the year now. That's purely because I really want to get these motors in. And once the point motors are in, I can really start the next phase of getting the layout sort of finished off, really, before I look to do something else. I'm at the point now where I've had my fun with the layout, and it's quite a cumbersome thing to take to shows. I'm quite satisfied with what I've acquired for it and what's next for it, and actually having something that's quite chunky. You know, it's one of those things you progress, and actually I wouldn't mind looking into something else for the fiddle yards. The biggest thing the layout has is fiddle yard problem, but you know, I'm really satisfied where I've taken the project. You know, it's really enjoyable, but for now I'm not really interested in getting rid of it just yet. I want to get I want to go to the Spalding Model Railway show. I want to go do a couple of 2-day shows with it, just to say I've done it, you know, and then look at the next stage. So yes, I'll let you enjoy the rest of your day, folks. And I'm sorry this has been a bit of a long video, probably one of the longest ones I've ever done, so I don't think everyone's going to be at the end watching this. If you do, you know, let me know. But yeah, I thought you might appreciate seeing something like this. My next focus will be to get things like the safety valves, the dome, the chimney on, and then look at some of the lubrication and pipe work that the Loco needs. So yeah, thank you very much for your time, guys, and I hope you have a good rest of your day, week, whatever you're up to. I hope it all goes well. So please take care of yourselves. Thank you very much for your time. Cheers.